guys?
Is she okay?
Somebody get the medics!
Stay with me, honey. You hear me? Breathe for me. Come on, open your eyes. I'm right here. Please, wake up.
My name is Amara. I am only 7 years old. Some people say that 7 years is not a very long time to live. They say children my age are still learning how to read big books, still learning how to tie their shoes, still learning how the world works. But in my 7 years, I have already learned something. Many adults spend their whole lives trying to understand. I learned that miracles are real, and I learned that sometimes the smallest voices can carry the biggest stories. When I was born, the hospital room was very quiet. The lights above the doctors' heads were bright and cold, and the machines around my tiny body made soft, beeping sounds that filled the room like slow, nervous heartbeats. My mom once told me that when I first came into the world, I was so small that I could fit inside her 2 hands. My fingers were thin like little twigs. My skin looked pale and fragile, and my breathing was weak. The doctors looked at each other in silence. One of them adjusted the tubes around me. Another checked the monitors again and again, hoping the numbers would change. But they didn't. Finally, one doctor walked over to my parents. His voice was soft, but his words were heavy. "I'm so sorry," he said. My dad says that moment felt like the whole world suddenly stopped spinning. The doctor continued speaking carefully, choosing his words like someone walking across thin ice. "Your daughter is very sick," he said. "Her body is extremely weak. There are complications we cannot fix." My mom held my tiny hand while tears quietly rolled down her face. Then the doctor said something that would echo in our lives for many years. "She may not live longer than 3 months. 3 months, 90 days, 12 short weeks." That was the amount of time the doctors believed my life would last. My mom says the room felt colder after those words were spoken. But she did something unexpected. She didn't scream. She didn't argue. She didn't collapse. Instead, she gently kissed my forehead and whispered something into my ear. She said, "Amara, you are a gift, and no doctor gets to decide how long a gift from God can stay." My dad stood beside her, holding her shoulder as both of them looked at the tiny baby that everyone believed would soon be gone. But my parents made a decision that night. They decided that whether I lived for 3 months, 3 years, or 3 minutes, every moment of my life would be filled with love. So they took me home, and that's when the real story began. The first few weeks were very hard. My mom barely slept. Every night she would sit beside my crib, watching my chest move up and down. Sometimes my breathing became so quiet that she would lean closer just to make sure I was still alive. Many nights she prayed until morning. She prayed for strength. She prayed for time. And most of all, she prayed for a miracle. My dad worked during the day, but every evening when he came home, he would hold me gently in his arms. He talked to me like I could understand every word. "Amara," he would say softly, "you are stronger than they think." When I turned 1 month old, the doctors were surprised. They expected my condition to get worse quickly, but somehow I was still breathing. Still fighting, still here. At 2 months old, I was still alive. At 3 months old, the time the doctor said I would never reach, I opened my eyes, looked at my mom, and smiled. My mom cried harder that day than she had ever cried before. But those tears were not tears of fear. They were tears of hope. The doctors didn't know how to explain it. They repeated their tests. They checked my heart. They studied my lungs. But nothing changed the fact that I was still here. Some of them called it unusual. Some called it unexpected. But my mom had a different word for it. She called it a miracle. And every birthday after that felt like something sacred. When I turned 1 year old, my parents didn't throw a big party. Instead, my mom held me close and whispered, "Thank you, God, for 1 year." When I turned 2 years old, my dad lifted me into the air and laughed like someone who had just won the greatest prize in the world. 2 years, he shouted. The doctors were still confused, but my parents were not. They knew exactly who had written my story. And year after year, I kept living. But not everything in my story is happy, because the greatest miracle in my life is also connected to the greatest loss I have ever known. The person who believed in my miracle more than anyone else. The person who prayed beside my bed every night. The person who called me her little warrior was my mom. And one day, she was gone. For as long as I could remember, my mom was my safe place. Every night she sat beside my bed, holding my small hand in hers. Sometimes she would sing softly while I tried to fall asleep. Other nights she simply watched me breathe. Like every breath I took was a treasure she never wanted to lose. She used to whisper, "You are my miracle, Amara. Never forget that." But one day, something began to change. At first, it was small things. Mom started getting tired more often. She would sit down after doing simple chores, pressing her hand gently against her chest like she was trying to calm something inside her. When I asked if she was okay, she always smiled. "I'm fine, sweetheart," she would say. "Just a little tired." But the tiredness didn't go away. It grew. Some mornings she struggled to get out of bed. Some nights, I heard her coughing quietly in the kitchen when she thought no one was listening. My dad started looking worried. Then one day, my parents went to the hospital. They tried to act normal when they came home, but I could see it in their eyes. Something was wrong. That night, my mom sat beside me on my bed. She brushed my hair slowly with her fingers, the way she always did when she wanted to comfort me. But this time, her eyes were full of tears. "Amara," she whispered softly. I looked up at her. "Yes, Mommy?" She smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Do you remember how we always say that God writes our story?" I nodded. "Well, sometimes the chapters are shorter than we want them to be." I didn't fully understand what she meant. All I knew was that my mom hugged me tighter than she ever had before. Weeks passed, and her sickness became worse. She grew weaker every day. The same mother who once stayed awake all night watching over me was now the one lying in bed while machines quietly beeped around her. One evening, I was allowed to sit beside her in the hospital. Her hand felt warm but fragile in mine. She looked at me with the same loving eyes she had always had. "Amara," she said softly, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "You were never supposed to live. Remember?" I nodded slowly. "But God kept you here," she continued, "because the world still needs your light." Tears rolled down my cheeks. "I need you too, Mommy," I whispered. She gently wiped my tears with her thumb. I will always be with you, she said. Maybe not where you can see me, but always where you can feel me. That night, my mom closed her eyes, and heaven gained the person who believed in my miracle the most. But before she left, she told me one last thing. Whenever you feel scared, sing. Sing the song we practiced together. And remember, you are still my miracle. And that's why today, lying here before you, holding this microphone with trembling hands, I'm about to sing the song my mother taught me, because this song is for her. Before I sing the song my mom taught me, I want to say something to everyone watching. If this story touched your heart even a little, thank you for being here with me. If you believe in hope, if you believe that love and faith can carry people through the hardest moments, you can share a kind message or a prayer for anyone who might need it today. Sometimes a few kind words in the comments can give someone strength they didn't know they had. And if you would like to hear more stories that bring hope and encouragement, you're welcome to follow or subscribe so more people can discover them too. You never know who might be scrolling tonight, feeling alone, and suddenly find a message that reminds them they are not. Thank you for listening to my story. And Mommy, if you can hear me in heaven, this song is for you.